Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Side Credentials, episode 9 on the Essential Credentials YouTube channel. We are joined, Ben and myself are joined by Will, who is a common guest on the Essential Credentials and his second time on the Side Credentials. Also a card shop employee, and he's wearing the shirt, so that's great. It's going to provide some great perspective for us today, and we're really happy to have everybody here. We are going to be focusing on a couple of different topics today. But to start off, Ben and I, as we do every week, had a bit of a conversation in the middle of the week trying to think of what to talk about. And I think there's a topic that everybody's going to be able to relate to tonight. And that is, when you think about purchasing cards, you think about the cost, obviously, right, guys? You think about, okay, this is going to be $50, $100, $300. You kind of figure that out. But nobody off the top of their head ever thinks about two things. The amount of time that you're going to have to take to find and get these cards in your collection, then sort them, then get pictures, then all that stuff. And then, the energy that you're going to be putting out to get these things and the connections with people. You have 6, 7 connections to get one card in your collection. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Then I'm going to throw it to you first. Like what really brought this on as of late, as far as diving into the time and diving into the energy that we put in to get these cards?
Yeah, part of it was actually stemmed from our conversation we had with Ray, and that as I'm starting to get to the more rare Ichiro stuff, the amount of time and energy I'm having to put into like making connections with other Ichiro collectors to find guys. In addition, some of the guys I've recently purchased from are in Japan. And there's a whole time difference, literally scheduling time to talk with someone about some of their cards they might want to let go of. And so there's like the cost of the card. Some of these I'm looking at are, $600 to $800, but it's also multiple weeks of like communicating with this person, or like they know somebody else actually, but I'm going to talk to you first. So we're cool. So you think you could toss me over to your friend because you don't want to just let a total stranger. You don't want to share a friend's personal information with a stranger. So you have to talk to them first. Then you meet with the other person that actually has the card. Then you talk with them. You got to schedule time with them. And so it's really like, even if it's a $300 card, you're like, well, really, I also personally spent 6 hours or 7 hours of communication time to acquire this card. So it just made me think, like, as these things are getting harder to get, I'm having to put in like much more like outside the numbers, like dollar amount cost sunk into the card. I imagine I was going to bounce over to Will and say, I imagine with like your Ripken stuff, as it gets rare and rare and you're down to, I don't even know, probably very few left, the time and energy into finding a copy before, even if it's not available, just finding one must be like expensive when it comes to your time and energy.
Yeah. And I'm also hitting the point of like, I don't want to spend that much for a card. Like once it gets to like mortgage payment level, that list is very short for me of cards that I'm willing to drop a K+ on.
Right.
And yeah, it definitely does get stressful. There's also like a little bit of a jealousy factor too when you see other people grabbing them.
100%.
I had a chance and I let it go, and they've got it, and I know it's not moving for a long time once it's in so-and-so's collection or so-and-so's collection. Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
And it reminds me of another bit of the time and energy cost in checking like your saved searches. And it's not going to be there, but you're going to check it every day because maybe that out of 10 copy is going to pop up in that search. So you got to check it. And for 8 months, there's none of them there, but you still spent the time looking every time.
Raise your hand if you've maxed out your saved searches.
Oh, I have, and I've trimmed them back now.
I agree, like literally 20 plus the other day, because it was like, you cannot add anymore. I'm like, I can't have that many on there. And then you go back and you see like, oh, I already picked this up. Why is this here? Why is this here? How much time have I wasted? Whew. Yeah, that's a great point.
Funny side note on that too, when it comes to the time and energy, I always have this hope that I can just save a query as like Barry Bonds, all categories, no specifiers, and someone's going to put something amazing in there with like, a bad title or mislabeled or something. And I'll see by scrolling through the 700 new Barry Bonds cards, I'll find the one that's like a killer deal. And it almost never happens. But I have like the super specific queries and then I have like the super broad, and then I'm just spending more time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Typos. You'd be impressed how many
typos.
different ways people can spell Ripken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have all sorts of weird missing letters, adding letters, changing letters.
I have the Griffey with one F that stays. You never
Yeah.
know. You never know.
Let's say hi real quick. We got our buddy Luke in here hanging out. Luke, good to see you. Yes, you're the only one with that probably, other than maybe like Dead Guy Cardboard and Alan might have one of those. And yes, of course. I do have one that says Marc-Andre Fleury, but I do not have any others. And if I did, it's just so much more time, right? Because there's the chance that, somebody threw up an amazing card and it just says Marc-Andre Fleury card. I've seen it before, and you're just like, dude, like trading card. What's that?
Ripken. It's like, wow.
And actually more to like the time and energy spent. It's almost like gambling with your time when you do those super broad ones and they just say 99 plus every time you go look. It's 99 plus. You're kind of gambling with your time. And then when you do actually find one that's a total winner, that's a great deal, it almost like feeds the beast. Like, for example, for me, I woke up one morning really early, my broad Ichiro all categories. This was a couple years ago. Rolled through, a guy listed the 2001 Topps Chrome Ichiro, and then right below it listed the Retro Factor, both for $200. And so I just, boom, got the Retro Factor. I was like, it's probably just a Chrome again. Came in and I got it and I was like, oh no, I have to save this Ichiro query forever because that could happen again. Never happened again. It's 3 or 4 years since that happened. Never had a win like that. Probably never will. But it just like fed it. And so I just realized I've spent a lot of time and energy on those queries for really very little payoff at the end.
Yeah, always chasing the dragon.
Oh, chasing it, man. I got fed that one time and I was like, oh man.
That's such a good analogy because it's so true. I think back years ago, Will, there was that A-Rod lot that had all those rare Pacific cards in there, and it was really like Alex Rodriguez rare lot. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm typing in Alex Rodriguez lot and looking through 500 freaking listings, and there was nothing in there. It's just like the hope. You get that glimmer of hope that something's going to be in there, and you look at every picture of when it's like zoomed out and there's like 30 cards. Yeah. Where's the refractor hiding? Nothing. Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, I think this is more geared toward, which we're going to get into in a little bit with Will's Hall of Fame collection, is like when you make a decision to have, as I don't want to steal this from Ben. Ben, what was your saying for starting another collection?
Oh, side quest. When you start a side quest. Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody that games, because we're all gamers, their side quests can keep you rolling for days. Some of the side quests are more annoying than the freaking story, the campaign. Oh my gosh. So yeah, when you decide to go down another path, go down a side street or whatever you want to say, there's a lot to think about as opposed to, oh yeah, I want to collect this player. It's in knowing how our brains work too. Many of us are very obsessive with what we collect. Hence the time commitment. So when you're like, oh, I want to collect, Tyler Glasnow or Ichiro, or let's say Will is like, I'm going Ronald Acuna, I'm going for it. Oh man, that's just, it's endless, right? Because you're not thinking about how much time it's going to take to learn about those cards from that player, where their pricing is at, and all your searches every day. It's a way bigger commitment than I think people think about. And it can definitely lead to burnout, which is something I think we all try to avoid best we can. But I guess my question for both of you, I'm going to start with Will here. Like when you are looking at, let's just talk about your Ripken collection, right? Obviously anybody that knows Will knows a very impressive collection. The time and effort that you've put into putting it together, year after year within a budget has been really impressive. Do you have limits as far as how much time you are taking to look at the save searches, sort through your collection, all that other stuff? Do you manage it in a way so there is no burnout on your end?
Gosh, I guess I haven't hit the burnout point on that yet. Because I'm still in the grips of it. Like I feel like, no, I'm good. I can, every time I pull my phone out, the first thing I do, all right, let me go refresh newly listed, see the last 6 cards, because it's been 45 seconds since I last checked it, But it has been nice. I don't want to jump the gun on the side quest discussion, but like that has been a nice little detour to go back to our previous point of like, I'm kind of running out of stuff that interests me now. And I've also recently kind of really like narrowed the scope of what I'm looking to buy. Like the completionist in me kind of went away.
Nice.
And I don't think of it as like burning out or giving up. I think of it as like just evolving. My interests are evolving. You know, the direction I want to take things is evolving. And so like, you know, a month and a half ago, I sold like almost 100 cards. And like, if you ask me to write them down right now, I could maybe give you 10. You know, I won't even miss them. You know, it was just like a whole bunch of stuff that I bought because it's like, oh, I can finish this little rainbow of, you know, this little set that's not anything super crazy, but it's like, I can put this rainbow together. Let's I can check the box, you know? And so I freed up a whole bunch of space, which was really nice. And like, just a little boost of like, oh, you know, I think of the, what's her name on Netflix? It's like, what brings you joy? Like, you know, a big stack of empty one touches that brought me a lot of joy because it's like, oh, good, I don't have to buy freaking supplies for probably a couple of years with the amount of one touches I just freed up. And it's like I've been constantly negotiating real estate in all of my boxes that I keep my collection in because it's like things are getting tight. They've, you know, SentrySafe has changed the dimensions of the box so they don't fit cards as well anymore as or at least not as economically. And so I've been really hesitant to buy another box because like that's expensive. And I was like, man, rather than just buying a box to keep adding, let's do some addition by subtraction, sell a whole bunch of stuff. Now I'm a little bit more liquid. When that big card comes up that I do want, boom, I've got the cash. I have a friggin' mountain in my PayPal right now. And so it's been really nice in that sense to kind of like, you know, give yourself a little bit of a breather, and it's like you can kind of reset a little bit, and then that kind of pushes the burnout off of you a little bit and kind of refreshes things a little.
For sure. Go ahead. I mean, Ben, that's right up your alley because you talk
speaks
about that
directly to me.
Right? Yeah,
I've mentioned multiple times that I have like a certain number. I bought the same case. I have 3 and 1 empty one, but I really have constrained my collection to the 3. So I would say where my time and energy gets spent well is like auditing my collection and kind of going through and being like, I did like this card when I got it. Now, almost to your point, you made a really good point. Like if I sold it a month later, would I even like remember or care that I had it? And like, that's where I spend that energy. I go, this is absolutely worth it to like get rid of this thing. And that kind of gives me a boost of energy, right? So you're like, yeah, I'm now more liquid. Now I'm ready to go. And it kind of makes me excited to kind of keep the search for some of the other stuff. So I found that to be like really valuable energy spent. The energy that's not spent well is when you're like me and you work from home and you do just pull up eBay every 6 seconds.
Same.
Like, oh, work a little bit, taking a break. Okay. No, okay. And you just find yourself making a habit of pulling it up constantly. And you're like, okay, I've now looked at eBay 20 times today and I bought 0 cards. I got nothing.
It's a permanent tab open at all times. Like it's probably burned into my monitor right now if I turned it off.
And that's where I'm thinking really for myself, that's something I haven't really taken a closer look at is, am I spending my time with the searches like well? Because some of them are just aspirational, hopeful search. Like I'm spending time on those, but I really gone over my searches and gone, has this one actually provided me with anything?
Yeah.
You know, have I spent time on this search where it's like yielded a card for me, or these people that have communicated, you know, these contacts that I've made, have I yielded anything from this or not? Like I guess that's part of what we were talking about, Matt, which made me think about this topic is like, where's the energy being spent well, and where am I just like spinning wheels at times? And it's like not really doing anything.
Well, I'll throw this to you, Will, because I bet you want to add to this. But like, think about this, guys. When's the last big card that came up from the general search? Cal Ripken, Barry Bonds, Ichiro, Marc-Andre Fleury. Let's think about that, right? Because I'm sure you have like Cal Ripken Quantum Leap, even though you have one, right? You might have that as a safe search. And Ben, you might have like Ichiro Retrofractor just to like have a specific search. But we all have like the just generic. And like how many times does a big card come from that? I would say less than once a month, maybe once every 2 months. Then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? is once every 2 months of doing the same refresh on the phone worth it? Will, I'm going to say yes, especially if we've been chasing it for years. But Will, I'll go to you and then Ben. Is it worth it to spend months, in essence, looking at nothing to get the one nice card?
So yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to say I do love the word audit, to audit your collection. That's such a great way to think about it. Nice. And working at the card shop, I'm gonna circle back. I promise, Matt.
Okay, go for it.
So working at the card shop, the owners is a father and son, and both of their PCs fit in like a box, this big. Mm-hmm. They're less than 40 cards, and then I think that's just different from us. I think 90s collectors are obsessive player collectors with monster collections. I think the modern collector, I was listening to another card podcast that I won't dare utter the name of on here to give them free advertising, but the question came up, what do you think is the average size PC of a modern collector? And one of the guys said probably like 12 cards. And like my brain almost fell out of my head. Yeah. So I was like, what?
Could you imagine the hand wringing the three of us would have to do if we had to do that?
Oh
I'd rather have none. I'd just get rid of it all. I would rather have none.
Yeah. I would almost do that way too. You expect me to pick my favorite out of my 3,000 children? Are you kidding me?
Right. Right.
Top 10. Like that is hard.
Yeah.
That would be brutal.
And another guy was talking about how he had recently sold off, and this was part of the point that kind of got me motivated to sell. Was he said, "There's no law against you buying a card back. Like you can sell it, and if it pops back up, just buy it again if you miss it. But 99% of the time, you'll be like, oh yeah, I had that, and you're like, just keep scrolling." But so to circle back to your point, Matt, with all the safe searches and stuff, for me. I have, because I'm just like the database guy, I have a monster spreadsheet of comps from like 2019. Thank God I started this in 2019. Just on a whim, I was like, I get tired of hearing people go, oh, that never comes up. You never see one of those. And I always thought like, don't you? I feel like I've seen 3 this year. And so I've started collecting this, and it's like, I think I have about 500 cards on there. All ripping stuff, and it's kind of just like the heavy hitters stuff. A lot of stuff I have already. I probably already have over half of it, but that way, if one pops up, I can use a second crusade and flip it. What are they going for right now? Couldn't tell you. I can go look at my spreadsheet. I can see the last 3 sold. One sold 6 months ago. One sold 2 years ago. You can kind of, do some math in your head, but it also helps. If you're buying a card, you can come with evidence to somebody of like, hey, here's the last 3 comps. Here's my offer based on the last 3 sold public sales. So I still maintain a large safe search database now. I'm not looking if something pops up. I have the emails turned on, and I just check my email every morning and go through 50 safe search emails. And I'll track sold listings that way and just add it into my database. If it went sold, if it went unsold, if it's graded, what's the cert number? Because then that also happens a lot too, where it's the same card listed over and over and over and over.
Yep.
And so that kind of helps you visualize the market a little better too. Right. So I feel incredibly informed when I go to buy a card, and not just like, oh boy, I'm about to spend $800 on this card. All right. But it's like, I know if I buy it for 8, but they normally sell for 12,
right? I
can flip it if I want to. And when I went and sold off last month, I was making 4 and 5x what I paid for some of these a year ago. And it's not because the market's gone up or down. I just knew I was getting a screamer of a deal, and I knew to go ahead and pull the trigger.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of, I use the safe searches in that way too, to try and stay informed about the market and giving me written evidence somewhere that I can reference for future sales or research, whatever I'm doing.
So you're saying that it's worth it then, before I throw it to you, Ben, you're saying that makes it worth it to you to refresh the searches and to put all the time into looking every day, because it's kind of playing into your understanding of the market anyway, regardless if you're going to buy something or not. So there's another reason that you're spending all that time. I mean, that's a way to be efficient with it, right? I think Ben and I, maybe I don't keep a database like that. I do in my head. Like I already can tell you, if you say what about this Fleury card, I'll tell you exactly how much it's worth. I just know. But for you to be able to do that and keep a running database of it, like a PWCC type thing like we used to have, that makes it way more worth it. How about yourself, Ben? Do you feel like all the months of refreshing that search to get one card ends up being worth it still?
Yes and no, because I pay for Card Ladder and I use theirs.
Okay.
So you have their advanced searches. You can build your own like indices for like a player or a set of cards. So I build these little indices that'll track all the sales from multiple different platforms, put them into there, and kind of give me a trend line, and I can check all those previous sales on there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I keep track of that. That does help when it comes to like bigger cards that are like numbered 50 or less. But I would say for some of the ones that are maybe just rare, but you don't really see them sell that often, and maybe they don't bring like a high dollar amount, but you still don't want to like overspend, right?
Right.
That's where it gets, something like that gets a little trickier, because a lot of those, to be fair, a lot of those that we're looking for sometimes, private sales. A lot of that stuff just ends up being private sales at a certain point, and so you just don't really have a good idea.
Yeah, and even for the public sales, like once you start getting in the high end stuff, the price is the price. If it hadn't been listed in 3 years, you're going to pay what you want to pay for it. I'm going to ask what I want to ask for it.
Yep.
100%. You have the right to do that. If it's a 101, right? If it's a superfractor or whatever, you're basically like, all right, well, there's no real comp, although we can find comps, right? We're like, well, the last superfractor from last year sold for this much. Like there's a way, but you're right. It does kind of, there's really nothing that you can do with that outside.
Yeah, it's like, go find another one then. Good luck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, to answer my question, I mean, the reason I did this, Will, just like your database, I'm sure you have a want list in your database as well, right? That you're looking at.
Does both.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I built a visual want list right on my website. And so when I'm looking at this over and over and over, and I haven't crossed off anything in the top 10 in months, and then that one card, it comes up on the safe search, or you get a message from somebody on Instagram saying, hey, I know a guy who has this card, which happened on my birthday. I crossed off number 3 off this list, so therefore it's not there anymore. I think this is kind of like my reminder to, right before I go to sleep, refresh the search. When I wake up, refresh the search, because some of these are well known and some of these could kind of slide under the radar, right? Like that Sign of the Times isn't numbered, but it's a super short print. And I've only ever seen 2 sell in 4 or 5 years now. So, for me, just building a visual want list like this is the motivation to keep refreshing the search and keep the chase on, just like Luke was talking about, right? Like the chase is a big motivator in a way. And that for me is why I feel like it's still worth it. There are times where I'm like, oh, here we go, right, Ben? You're going to pull it down and it's going to refresh and the blue dot's going to be there with an 8 or whatever, or there's going to be an 8 or a 9 next to and you're like, here we go. It's the same 9 that the guys relisted every Sunday night at 6 o'clock, but you just never know, right? And I think we all have our own reasons why we do that, but it's something to think about, because there are days where people, I'm sure, get like, gosh, I'm so sick of looking at these safe searches and all this stuff. And I never want it to be like that. And it sounds like the 3 of us, well, like think about the Pujols, Ben. That came out of nowhere. That was out of left field, man. And had you not been looking, like that.
I pulled that over here because that's, I don't know if you know this one, Will. It's like the 2004 Bowman. They did this mahogany, so it's like a wood finish. Yeah. Only 25 of them. And I've had the Ichiro saved search of that card for over 4 years. And I've yet to see a copy of Ichiro come up. And then below, I hit the Ichiro search and went below, and it's like others like this, and the Pujols, which just happened to be below it. And I was like, well, that's a great picture of him. I mean, at first base, looks awesome. I was like, that can be a good filler. I would be happy to get the Pujols version of that, because I might not ever see the Ichiro unless Ray decides to sell me his copy. I just
Well, I
haven't
feel like
seen
him
it
and
anywhere.
Future are always linked because of that rookie.
The rookie, yeah. That rookie for me always has them tied together. So he's always a nice backup. And they're both first ballot Hall of Famers. That whole
100%.
thing. So
Right.
for me, I was like, oh, what a lucky, because I really didn't want anyone else from that set. I really wanted Ichiro, and then Pujols was like, oh, that's basically the second best one for me personally from that set. So
let me
one
add
of those
one more
lucky
thing,
ones.
Max, because your top 10 there made this thought pop in my head is the going back to like people saying, oh, that never pops up. Oh, it's, once it pops up, you better buy it. It's like the other thing that helps with having the database that I've built is it mega cuts down on the FOMO, because you start to see, oh, you see a Purple Crusade once or twice a year. Oh, you see this 5 or 6 times a year. You don't realize it because you see gazillions of cards every day. Like we're always looking, you're in the groups, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and it's like, and it all kind of just blurs together, and you kind of lose the time element of when you're seeing them. And the FOMO can really get people in trouble. I see a lot of people falling for that, where they feel like I got to get this one. That's like, bro, it's out of 99. Why are you? These are going to always be coming up for sale. There's no way these are going to end up in 99 permanent collections. You know, pump the brakes. It's okay.
I'm curious, almost going the opposite direction of that. Have you seen something come up frequent enough, or you keep track of it in your database frequently, where it's frequent enough that it shows up, that you lose interest in maybe picking up a copy of that? Because you're like, well, they come up all the time. They're less scarce than I thought. Maybe I don't want it that much.
The number one offender of that, the top 2, number 1 is definitely Skylines, 96 Pinnacle Skylines. I had
like 1 in 12 packs or something. They're like not even that rare.
Jumbo retails,
yeah. Some of these, I think, like Flair Legacies, like out of 99, they're great. A lot of that high demand. I've in 5 years, you might have 15 to 20 entries. Maybe that might be even high. But Skylines, I was like having to scroll all the way across the page. I had like 50 completed listings that I'd tracked. And I was just like, good Lord, people are paying $100, $200 for this thing. What is wrong with y'all? Delete. And then that also helps a lot with like the SSP and unnumbered stuff. You can start to compare. Okay, I've seen 3 in 5 years. Okay, what else have I seen 3 of in 5 years? And then you can kind of see, oh, a lot of these, like out of 50 are, are at that rate. Or, you can kind of guesstimate the print run on some of these, 97 Flair Hot Gloves is another one that I kind of was like, all right, if I can find one for under $10, I'll do it. But there's a zillion of these out there, apparently.
Yeah. It also helps with the time and energy if you're trying to keep like, oh, I want these 100 cards, but you can audit or check and see how rare some of them are. You're like, well, actually, I'm really going to only focus on like maybe these 10. Like these are the really hard, the difficult ones where I'll spend the time and the energy to like really track a copy of this down. And the other ones, when they come if it's the right price, sure. Otherwise, it's not like I'll never see one again.
Exactly. Yeah, and it kind of helps with the FOMO and like lets you be more what's the word I'm looking for? But just more deliberate in your purchases.
There it is. Yeah. Like there's a specific reason behind each one, right? You're not just like, oh, I better grab this because I might not find another one, right? I think something that's super cool that I've noticed about especially us 90s collectors is, we used to sit in front of the Beckett, in the morning or at night or whenever, like, going to bed, taking it in, and so we, prided ourselves on learning all the different intricacies of the 90s. And so I think something that's really cool is if you look at modern, super short printed cards or, even early 2000s, you can, by looking at data like you're doing, Will, or even Ben and I, we're like, we know like, okay, we've seen one of these in 10 years. You can kind of guesstimate if there's no real print run, how many there really are. And I can't tell you how many, but when I got my job after about a month, I'm like, you know what? I know how to find how many there are of these, super short printed, not going to tell you how many there are cards. And I was very happy to know that I was pretty much on every one of them. And you know what I mean? Like it felt really good to know, oh, there's this many only I was right. And I'm like, well, I've seen this many for sale over 10 years or 5 years. I was right, and so I think that's one thing that I've really learned too, is like these safe searches and stuff. Some of those ones, you might not see it come up for a few years, but you better be ready to pounce on certain ones when they do come up, because your instincts, if you're a 90s guy especially, are probably right. Like Will saying there's like thousands of Skylines. Yeah, there's a lot. But I was going to ask you, Will and Ben, if you guys could come up with an example. What is a 90s card, or even maybe a modern one for Ben, because he and I dabble in that is an underestimated, it really doesn't show up. Like we joke about that all the time with Tyler Mills, right? We always like, oh, we never see one of those. And like, that's bull crap. Yeah, you do. But what would be like, example or exhibit A, exhibit B of like, no, this really doesn't. Like that Pujols, for instance, I'm sure is one, but is there anything else off the top of your head that's like a surprisingly sneaky, I hope the search pops up?
I have two off the top of my head, one 90s one. And actually this is a good example of time and energy spent where I've just sort of cut my losses for the time being. And it's the Kramer's Choice, the purple foil out of 10. So I've got the entire Larry Walker run except the purple foil out of 10. And I spent time, I talked to Larry Walker collectors. Like I found one guy that had one. Obviously he's not letting it go. And I spent time like searching, checking with other people. And I just eventually was like, I just have to like let the card come to me. Like I can't continue to put in time and effort for this, because it's a Larry Walker. It's not even like a big part of my PC. It was just the guy I chose to make the run, literally because I found the out of 15 for so cheap. That was the first one I got. I was like, well, now I'm going to do the rainbow because this is one of the coolest rainbows of the 90s, period. It is.
Right.
And now, I mean, I haven't even really seriously looked for that card for like about a year now, because I just was looking and just to know it was this, the time spent wasn't worth it anymore for me. And then a modern one, the 2023 Topps Chrome, the Platinum Anniversary. This year they did the every case you got one silver pack of city variation cards. We had the city in the background, and then like one out of every 10 plus cases had a city variation pack that was a refractor version of those.
That's a great example.
I have not seen an Ichiro yet. I've been looking. I haven't seen one. I think there was one that listed like right when the product first came out, and like breakers were ripping a bunch. And that's the dangerous stuff with like the modern or ultra modern releases. Those cards get listed, and if it's something like that where the print run might be 3 or 5, something like that, it gets ripped by all the breakers in the beginning. An Ichiro guy goes, boom, got it, and that disappears into a PC somewhere. And then there's like a tail where it just drops off, and you just stop seeing them get listed because it's not the hot product anymore. It's like, I really want one, but I don't know what the print run is. It was like one in so many cases. There was a refractor pack, and then there's a long checklist of people that have the city variations. So the chance you get the Ichiro refractor is like, it's got to be a print run of 3 to 5. It's definitely less than 10. So maybe I'll find one. I don't know.
Great examples. Great. And when you put in that time looking at that search for the millionth time, hoping it's there, refreshing your searches, and it finally pops up, you'll be like, this was worth it. For sure. But
I hope, or I cut my loss on that one. I'm just like, you know what? I'll see it at a show sometime, maybe. Like I can't keep looking for it.
That would be sick. What about you, Will? What comes to mind?
It's funny. I mean, obviously, you'll get no argument from me about Kramer's Choice. This is a whole shelf of
I saw him there.
Oh, you like Pacific? I didn't know that. It's kind of strange.
You see, the newest edition is the Mike Kramer bobblehead right there.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome, dude.
For me, it's the gold. I don't have the gold out of 15, and
that's funny. Yeah,
there's one listed on eBay, and he wants way too much for it, and it's been up there for months and months. And I sent him, hey, here's the last 3 sales. They're fairly recent. I'll meet you in the middle, or I'll match the high, because this will complete my rainbow. I've got all the jumbos. I've got every other year. I've got all the standard size. I just need that one. I'll have the entire run.
The dangerous part about doing that too is you start making your plight like I have the run, and they're like, oh, I got this guy. Now I'm not going to give him a discount. It's like a dangerous game you have to play. Like, I don't want to show my whole hand here of like, this is the last one I need, and they're like, great, I want double now.
And if you think you're going to drag me over to Kohl's and just get every dollar out of my pocket for it, I'm not your Huckleberry for that. It's just that just goes back from that movie. That just goes back to like, I'm going to pay what I want to pay. I have no problem waiting. I've been in this hobby for 30 years. I have no plans on stopping. One will come up for auction at 99 cents.
Yep.
And we'll see where the chips fall, you know?
Right. I love this, by the way, because that card ends up in that exact category, right, Will? I have an album on my phone called Buy It When I See It. It has 5 cards in it. Everything else can wait. That's a great philosophy right there, Luke. And then he listed this one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Limit exposure. I mean, even though I don't really collect A-Rod, I have like 3 or 4 90s inserts still. I do have Quantum Leap saved and like that none of them really ever show up for anybody that often. Maybe Jeter and Griffey more often than others because they're big dollars, but those continue despite being out of 50 to be extremely difficult to find. And modern, I mean, it's funny. There's these O-Pee-Chee has these blank backs, which aren't that hard to make, honestly. I figured out, but they're quite rare. And again, knowing the print run of them, that isn't told to everybody, which is what it is. But they really don't. For how many there are, you would think, you might see one in a blue moon. Yeah, there's a couple I've never seen. So I think some of those cards, like with the 90s, that look the same unless you flip them over, get thrown in the base card bins, or like Pacific cards, the platinum blues probably got thrown away. So that adds to the difficulty of them. And so there's definitely a few out there that I'm hoping, with my millionth time refreshing the save search, that it shows up. But I think the three of us can, and this is a great springboard in the next topic, I think the three of us can say that we have spent time thinking about the time and energy factor. And it's funny how Will has talked about thinning things out because his perspective has changed a little bit. Obviously, Ben brought this up our first episode together when I moved here. He said, I wonder how your outlook on collecting is going to change when you are, in the industry. And the only thing that's really changed for me is I realized I've spent way too much time and money on my side quests, as Ben said. They've been great side quests, and it's helped me really get behind these players, but it's just also way too stressful. And I don't have the money or time to chase these guys anymore. So that's a big decision that I've made, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It's probably going to take me way longer than I would think. It's not like I have Cal Ripken Jr. inserts lying around. I have Tyler Glasnow, red refractors, and Duncan Robinson, white contras out of 3. There's not a big market for those. So it's going to take some time. But I do want to kind of dive into this because, Ben, you have a little bit more of a unique PC. I know you're a player collector at heart, but Barry Bonds is not the guy you're going to go, I'm going to collect 600, 700, 800 cards of because the prices are just crazy. But, we've all gone on side quests and actually enjoyed them, right? Depending on how far in we go. But I want to start with this question. Like when you both have made, when the three of us have decided, I'm going to take not a detour, but I want to look in other places to maybe freshen up collecting a little bit, right? I've been looking at Cal Ripken for 10 straight years, or I've been looking at Fleury for 5 straight years. I want to see what else this has to offer here. What springboarded you into that decision? And this is for everybody watching too, for anybody who's got a side PC or a side quest going, what made you do that? So I'm gonna go to you first, Ben. You've had some different, little sets and things that you've worked on. Is there a commonality behind wanting to do those and chase those side quests?
There's always a combination of factors, but actually to tie it kind of into the first topic, one of the things I enjoy about doing a little side quest or doing something on the side is, especially if I choose something that's like relatively low cost, readily available, is there's like a low energy and time cost put in and like a high reward, because I can just go get the card, I can start building the thing, and I get to put it together in a way that's pretty low stress, right? Depending on what thing you decide to go after. And that's where I'll have a modern guy that I want to just go collect stuff of that's relatively low cost. There's going to be a bunch of different cards, or just be fun to go grab those. Or I'm going to put together the set of this. There's only 12 guys in it. It's 1 in 24 packs, nothing crazy, but I can put it together kind of leisurely, and it's a cool thing it's very rewarding without this laborious effort that has to be put into it, or expense, right? So that's the part that kind of why I choose to do that. And I would say my collection is an amalgamation of a bunch of different side quests. That's essentially what my PC is. My main guy is Ichiro. My other guy is kind of Bonds. if I'm, and really for me, it's looking at like for 90s, it's do I like the card? And then for 90s, is Bonds in? If he's not, is there another guy in there? Because I just really like the design of the card and I want to have a copy of that. And so really it kind of starts there. Do I enjoy the card? Am I going to enjoy like looking at this card? Then is it my player? And kind of goes from there. And so that's how I have like a bunch of these different guys. Like I got the Larry Walker with Pacific stuff. I got Bonds with this other subset of 90s stuff. I got Ichiro for 2001, 2010 kind of thing. I have my vintage, my pre-war baseball stuff that I do. So it's a bunch of these like little different side quests. And I like that because if I do get burned down on one that's just like putting in a lot of time, spinning my wheels, bounce over here. There's some 2007 Ichiros I can grab easy that I haven't, that I think look great, that are readily available. And boom, I get a little like, nice, I got something in. I'm really happy to get this one. And it kind of gives me some energy again.
Right.
I don't know. What about you, Will?
Good. That's good. Yeah. How about you, Will? Because I mean, whereas he's got different places he can jump to, and I used to be able to do that. What made you go, all right, it's time to start a Hall of Fame autograph collection? Because that's a very big, other than the fact that Ripken is obviously a Hall of Fame.
And you set parameters for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of looked at it as like, okay, my Ripken collection is like infinite. There's always going to be something I don't have. It's a bottomless pit. I don't want that. I already have a closet that is overflowing with baseball cards. I don't need to add to that mountain. So I was like, I want something with a beginning and an end that's finite. So I thought, okay, Baseball Hall of Fame, a couple hundred guys, a lot of them I can pick up easy, and then there'll be a small handful that's like, Ruth, forget it. You go down the list. I'm not even worried if I end up with 95% and I'm missing guys that are $10,000 and up, I'm going to consider it completed.
Right.
But I liked it was like challenging, but also not a huge number of cards. And like this set behind me on the top shelf, this is the 1910 T210 Columbia Gamecock set. I live in Columbia, South Carolina.
Nice.
And it's like 13 cards. I'm like a little over halfway, 3/4 of the way there. That's been a fun one. It's like they're cheap. They're $50-$60 a piece. They're beat. I don't care. It's just a fun, cool piece of local history. And, when we set up card shows, I'll take them. You show that to somebody here in Columbia, they go, holy, hit the bleep button, and it's just cool. And those are ones that I find myself every time I open this door, those are the ones I look at first, because I think of how many hands has that card passed through in 114 years. What other collections has this been in? And then with the Hall of Fame autos, I didn't want another box. And a couple years ago in our group chat, Matt, I feel like all of us bought the top loader binders at the same time and like got obsessed with them.
We did. I have like 6, I think.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna find what's the biggest top load. Okay, 180 cards. That's the biggest binder I can find. Let's see how long it takes me to fill it. And that's been great too, because then it just sits by my desk. It's taking up zero room.
Yeah. Yeah, that decision, that when we make these decisions, I think I put them in 2 categories. One is because you want to continue the chase of having things coming in the mail. I'm very guilty of that. It's a distraction. When especially when you're completely removed from everything you're comfortable with, and you're wanting to bring a glimpse of happiness into just a whirlwind situation. It was very easy to be like, I want to buy a few Shea cards and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I want to buy a few of these and Marvel cards. And I was like, holy crap, like this is getting out of hand, So talking to Ben was a great pump the brakes, moment, because he's talking about always consolidating. And so many of us, I think, have realized how important that is, because COVID, we all did the opposite. We were all going crazy because everything was out there and everything was expensive, but everything was available. So it was very easy to chase. And so for me, I'm headed the opposite direction. I'm working in a place where I can see what's coming out of my favorite player. And I made a want list of like 20 cards, and I'm like, stick to that. Stick to that. Like if it's out of 99, it comes up. Okay, wait for it to go on ComC for like $3 if the photo is really cool. Just be patient, you know?
Yeah.
But then like have the 15 to 20 of like, I'm going for these cards, and don't chase any of these other players. Just don't. And I've deleted all my Glassnow and Robinson save searches, and it's been good because I always kind of thought like, oh, you know, support Hall of Famers or support Ichiro or support, you got to collect them too. And that's not always the case, you know? And so having a very specific reason for why you're making a side endeavor in a way is very, very important, because it needs to have staying power. So what do you think? I'll start with you, Will. What do you think it is about this Hall of Fame? Because Ben, you bailed on this chase, so I'm curious your opposite take. Will, what has given this new side quest of Hall of Fame autographs staying power for you?
Immaculate Grid.
Yeah,
that's why you're so freaking good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can pull some real deep names for Immaculate Grid now.
What's real quick, I just had that. What's that one crazy dude's name from like the early 1900s? It's like Old Sarge
Old
something. What's his
Hoss
name?
Radburn.
Yeah.
Old Hoss. Yeah, I had his T206.
See, you two guys, man, like crazy.
Actually, I learned something about him. I think he has the first photographic evidence of somebody flipping the bird. I think there's like a team photo of him, and he's just like low key, like flipping the bird to the camera. And I think he's the first documented photo of someone flipping the bird intentionally.
That's a trivia night. Will is going to win it for us. We're gonna do a trivia night.
I have no idea where I remember that from. But I think that's true.
So beyond Immaculate Grid, though, like what, you know, is it the satisfaction that it brings you? Is it knowing that there's always going to be new guys to chase? Because you're not just buying Hall of Famers. You're doing a great job of who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, you took care of Ichiro a year or two ago. But what is it in general that keeps this fun and exciting without it seeming overwhelming?
And in addition to that, I am curious with the parameters. You're like on card. You have like these certain parameters you set. Is that based on like you kind of checking with the effort? Like you set up your expectations in the beginning. Is that to like save time and energy, or is that like I want to set my expectations so I can quote unquote finish, but also like keep it reasonable? How do you do that part? Because I'll say for me, I failed because I didn't do that. I got excited, got into it, and then bailed on the side quest because I was like, ooh, I didn't take the time to realize what I was diving into here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think for us, I think that's a mentality that 90s collectors that are like, I have a massive players collection. It is perfectly okay to buy one card of one guy and be good, you know? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was kind of like, I just need to diversify my portfolio a little bit. Cause it's like my pond I'm fishing in of high-end Ripkins, if I need to sell something, my pond is small. And more than likely, we're all going to have the same stuff. We've already got what each other has, save for a few very high-end things. Mm-hmm. And I just enjoy the history of baseball cards in general, from like the very beginning up until now. Like I have some super old, like not even technically a baseball card. It's just a card that is like a precursor to baseball cards kind of stuff. Like I love old stuff like that. And so for me, the Hall of Fame side quest was kind of just like, okay, I can kind of diversify my player portfolio. So if somebody goes Wander Franco, I'm fine. I'm not super deep in Wander Franco. You know, I can just get rid of the one card of the one problematic guy. And it's like, okay, no harm done.
Yep.
As far as my parameters go, Eric Johnson is somebody that I talk to a lot, and his big thing is just eye appeal. He was a Rusty Greer player collector forever, and he's always said the best thing I ever did was to just step away from player collecting and just buy what I like. It can be any era, doesn't matter. I just want it to look cool, and that will bring me joy. And so for me, it's like I wanted on-card autographs. I friggin' hate sticker autographs. What is the point? I would rather autographs be harder to get than a bunch of sticker autographs. You know, maybe a hot take. I don't know. So that was one thing I definitely wanted. I also liked having so many sets to choose from was really cool, because then I could, I don't do modern Ripken. I only do like basically playing years Ripken. So now it's like, oh, I can go buy that Ginter mini auto of Eddie Murray, and sweet, cool, that's fun.
Right.
You're giving yourself permission to buy some modern stuff.
That's such a good way to put it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just kind of lets you fish in different waters a little bit.
Yeah.
And it also like makes for a cool look in the binder when you're flipping pages, and it's like you get all this variety, and like the signatures are also different, and the card designs are also different. And it's just like the cool factor like really ramped up for me,
because you really do get like a collage of designs and a nice cool history of baseball, because I'm also someone like that, right? Like I collect the pre-war baseball stuff, so mid-century guys. Like I'm as much a collector of like a player maybe as I am a collector of like the actual hobby, like the design of cards and the history of baseball. Like that's almost more where I would say like my collection really lies. So mine, I'll tell you,
in the exact same boat.
I'll tell you another one that I bailed on that was very similar is this set when it came out in 2001 was the Topps Archives Reserve. So they all had the refractor finish and they had the autograph subset. And the reason I liked it is it's every player, it's their rookie card with an on-card autograph. And I was like, this is basically the coolest thing ever. It's the original rookie card with this. And I was like, oh,
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So I actually had this from when I was a kid, which is the original Bob Gibson rookie card. I got this when I was a kid in like 2000 for I think like $25, ungraded. So it was just raw. And I just finally sent it to get graded. I was really happy with the 5. And I was like, oh, you know what? I love these. Why don't I go get the original version of all of the players that have the autograph in the subset and get the matching autograph as like a side quest?
Oh, that's cool.
Big side quest.
Turns out it's going to cost a lot. Like I haven't given up on it, but it's one of those I had to go, okay, realistically, this has to be done over like a longer period of time. This is not one of those, 3-month side quests you take. And you're like, cool, knock that out. That was kind of a fun thing to do. It's like, oh, this is one of those you take in a video game. You're like, this is going to take some playing hours to complete this one. But
how big is that?
I want to say it's like 100 that actually did that one. And like the biggest one was,
geez,
because you have guys in there that like Bob Feller on card autograph. It's the 52 Topps. The thing is the autograph for that one, $40. Now you have to go get the Bob Feller rookie 1952 Topps card.
Oh
yeah.
And that's where you're going to end up spending money, right? And so like the big one for me that got me excited about doing this one again is I finally got the Willie Mays. So it's the 1952 Topps Willie Mays. I got this like really nice dark black autograph. I mean, like the best Willie Mays autograph I've seen in a long time. Now I had to save up or consolidate some stuff in my collection to go find a copy of the 52 Topps Willie Mays that I'm going to be happy with, right? So that's time and energy. But that's one that I think once I get that one, I'm going to be back off to the races on that side quest because that's like the big hurdle to get over.
Right. Well, it sounds like, the commonality between everyone so far and like having a side PC/side quest is you want something that's going to have the potential to give you a future chase of some kind, whether it's guys getting into the Hall of Fame for Will, or for you, maybe some retro set that Topps does that connects you to some of those early players and early cards you collected, like something to look forward to. And I will say that's what's made the modern stuff so fun is, well, there's going to be more, right? So you can kind of look forward to like something new coming out. And, that's something that's hard to stay away from because we're always chasing something new and exciting. Whereas the guys in the 90s, I've talked about this many times, when you collect A-Rod, if you're 90s A-Rod, there's a finite amount. If you're Pacific Ripken, once you get to a certain point, that's it. You're done, and if you're a collector that's cool with being like, what, I'm good. I'm going to step away for a few years until I find something I want to do. Eventually you're going to come back or you will sell everything. So it's like, what is it that can keep you going? And having a side quest can do that. And it's definitely something that is, like you were saying, Ben, you didn't think about the fact that, oh, wait, hold on, it's going to cost how much? And I'm sure, Will, you also set the parameter of how much to spend. And believe you sent me a list, right? You said, I'm looking for these guys, and this is what I'm looking to spend on each of these guys. So you kind of found the mean, or whatever. You could even say median, I guess, either one of like, where's the middle ground for an auto for Edgar, for Pedro, for, Smoltz, and all these different guys. Like, what a fun way to like set some boundaries, but know that you're going to have a chance to get something, and a lot of people don't do that with side PCs. They go, okay, I'm going to collect Mahomes. It's like, dude, look how many cards he has. Like, what, 40,000? I mean, like, you better set some like parameters of what you're looking for. Like for Justin Jefferson, case hits, might sell, might not, but there's only going to be a certain like 20 a year that come out. So it's not like there's going to be something new all the time, right? So it's tough. You got to think about all those things, and we're all guilty of maybe going a little bit too far. Like you said, Willie, you've sold some Ripkins. Ben, you've sold quite a few cards off. I've done the same. I'm going to be doing the same. It's so easy to let it get out of hand, So
I think you just hit the nail on the head, where I think we have to turn our player collector brains off a little bit. Of it's like we just admitted we are all maxing out our save searches. We have a mental illness of some kind, like it's crazy. It's like, dial that back. Let your side PC be that. Let it be very casual. If you lose an auction, all right, whatever. My Hall of Fame auto collection, it's like I probably lose 10 auctions before I win one, because I'm trying to win one for as cheap as possible. And it's like, that's kind of the rush of like, I'm trying to see how low can I get one for,
Oh, that's a fun,
like a ton of auctions. But who cares? There's another one.
How cheap can I get a Tim Raines auto for?
Yeah.
Can I get one for $4?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's the chase of the deal, and it just lets it be a little more casual. And just kind of.
I also think you like, kind of back to the time and energy thing, putting the legwork you did up front by like determining kind of, here are the prices, here are the guys, here's where I'm going to cut stuff off, makes it more fun and reduces the amount of time and energy you spend on the back end, right? So like,
gives you some
I'm gonna do the save search for like these guys that are really expensive, and I'm gonna have to keep checking them over and over. Just saying like, I'm not doing a Ruth. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna spend time searching for it. I'm gonna put some guardrails on this thing. And then you have the like easy wins, like you pick up a Duke Snyder or whatever that's like not that expensive, and you have the like fun of getting the easy win, but it's like kind of low stress, because if you miss one, you're not like, oh man, oh no.
Exactly.
I think that's really smart and a good point you made, to like keep it fun for the side PC or side quest stuff. Like, don't make it a stressful thing on top of whatever main thing you're already collecting.
Yeah, like you're already stressing bad enough over, these super high-end rare things. Like, don't just give yourself another one.
And like, I like what you said, Will, and I'm sure you agree, Ben, like us 90 collectors, and especially if you're a player collector, the get everything mentality, because you see your friends doing it, you see other collectors doing it. The $10 card that they post, that used like the old times on the Facebook 90s group, where somebody would post a really cool $10 card. What one comes to mind? It's like 97 New Pinnacle. There's an insert in there. Keeping the pace. Yes, I remembered it. I remember when all of a sudden Rodney posted that, and everybody's like, "Whoa, these are amazing!" It's like, all right, time to go get one. You've watched it come by 20 times on a save search. Just stay for this for later. And so the mentality is just to grab everything, and it's so important to set those parameters and let it be a casual thing. That's a perfect way to say it, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do for many of us, and I clearly did not, because like we do. I mean, you get passionate about collecting a certain player, and then you see your new friends that you've made that collect that genre, that sport, and they're saying these cards are rare and fun and talking about it. So, well, I got to go chase these now, and so it's been a really good wake up call to look at it and go, okay, I need one player that I can kind of do that with, but like with Ripken, like pull it back a little bit with Fleury and just focus on the really nice stuff, and let all the other stuff come and go. And if like Ben likes to do, you had a card show and you see, and you're at the show and you're looking through the box. Oh, there it is for $1, and I can combine it with these other 5. Perfect. Now I don't have to buy it on eBay or whatever, like then,
Mhm.
you know, sure, you grab it, but it's not a refresh the search type thing. It's you really limit the parameters. And then my biggest thing, and I know you're Hall of Fame PC and Ripken, Ben, I love that you do this too. Every time a card comes in, it's significant. When you get the card in hand, you like stop, you look, you know, you think about, why did I buy this? Why is this important? And it fits into a category, right? It's not just like, oh, no, there's another glass now, moving on. I was getting very tired of that feeling because I was like, I'm losing like the specialness.
I went through that recently too, of like, I started to develop like the stack where like, oh, I'm just too busy with work and stuff in my life. So I had the stack of stuff that was coming in, but I wasn't like picturing it, organizing it, like re-sleeving it to make it nice. It was like just sitting in the stuff that arrived in from eBay. I was like, all right, if I was really excited about this card, I would have immediately like gotten it pictured, you know, put it away, put it in a one touch, whatever.
Yeah.
So I really, when I started doing that, I'm like, okay, this is not a significant card that I really needed. I did this for like another reason. I need to like really check myself here.
It's so important, and it's good. I mean, I had to leave this up there because I don't know if you saw it, Ben. So Luke, is this a group therapy for mental illness or just enable it? I think it's both. You know what I mean? Because if you cannot admit the fact that that you have a problem, at least let it be a positive thing where it's we're not drinking, we're not out partying, we're not out, you know, smoking or doing whatever else. If this is our problem, how can you keep it boxed into a place where it's still healthy, you know, and it's not, you know, pulling you away from your priorities and overspending and all this stuff. And so, yes, it's a bit of a wake-up call for some people, but I wanted to talk about that too, because Will, it's been really fun to follow that endeavor for you. And then of course, Ben, when you say, I got this one Ichiro in, I've been looking for it for years, like that is an amazing feeling that should last for a while. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can kind of browse and whatever, but like when you get a Hall of Fame auto that you've been trying to get for $10, you finally make it happen. Like that's a win right there, you know? And so I like that you guys do that. And I think it's important for people to hear about that because especially in modern collecting, you can chase PSA 10 Mahomes all you want, or Justin Herbert. I mean, like there's a gazillion of them out there, or Luka. There's no end to that endeavor. There's absolutely no end to it. And how can there be satisfaction, you know? So that's how it is for me. You know, I want that satisfaction back. And to springboard off that, I'm going to go both ways with this. I don't know if you guys have anything around that you'd like to show to kind of end the show. But Ben and I are big Stadium Club fans, Will, and you know where this is going because I've already shown the picture. I was like so stoked. I knew exactly what photo they were going to use. And I'm like, I can't wait to pick up a Tyler Glasnow gold refractor out of 50 from Stadium Club Chrome. This is going to be great. And the picture they used is this. And he doesn't even look excited there. Like, bro, Ben, you said it perfectly. Where does this picture belong?
Yeah, like a Series 1 image variation, beginning of the season.
Right. Don't you agree, Will? Like Topps update or something, right? The picture that should have been on here ended up in a box set as a variation, which is freaking awesome. Like, is that not the coolest picture of him in a while? But it's in a Topps box set as a variation. Like, okay, great. It's rare, but like, what are we doing here? So that was like my low light, but the card that really made me go, you know what, screw this. I'm going to basically sell everything except Fleury was this card right here. Now, Will, you work in a card shop, so you probably know what this is now, I would assume. This is the Golden Treasure. So think of Superfractor. Yep. But in Upper Deck, this is the 101 for O-Pee-Chee Platinum. So, you know, same gold circle pattern, but it's a little bit shinier than a Superfractor. But this came up, and I traded a Justin Jefferson Color Blast and a little bit of money to get this. This card brings you way more joy than any Jefferson ever will. So that's why I got this in hand, and I was like, screw this. What am I doing? You know, like if this comes up once a year, a card like this comes up once a year, then I would rather have that than 50 Justin Jeffersons on my display case. So that's my example I wanted to show. Sometimes we get a really cool card or like maybe for you guys, it's like, well, I can't afford this, but I want this way more than the other 100 Ripkens that just left, you know, or those two Ichiros. So anyway, I had to share those, and I bought this for a coworker who's a Dodgers fan. It's the photographer's proof. I think there's 10 or 13 and it's going to his desk, and I'm never going to buy another one. Stupid.
I think my
Anyway.
description of it was he looks like a celebrity that just threw out the first pitch.
Yeah, it does have those vibes.
You know what I just noticed too? Look at the back of this thing. You guys see the top up there? I don't know if it's come there. You can't really see it, but there's a big white spot on there. So
Nice little
yeah, nice shop top. Sweet.
Gotta love QC. Nice job.
All right. What about Ben? I'll throw it to you, and then we'll let our guest of honor go last here. It's something that I know I kind of stole your thunder on the Pujols there, but I had to use it as.
Well, I know that. So actually, that's a good example because that's really the only major mail day I've had recently was this Pujols, which was such a big one. And I still love looking at it because it's that original 1955 Bowman design. He's at first base in the field, which, you know, when he got later in his career, that's not really a thing you would see of him. Like, I don't even sure you could squat anymore after about 2015.
Yeah, no,
but just such a.
Can you explain though? Sorry, Ben, but can you explain a little bit why those are so rare, like odds or however it works?
Well, they're numbered to 25. So you would think
they are numbered. Okay.
They are numbered to 25, but the reason you really don't see them that much is that wasn't really that popular of a product. So I think a lot of it just didn't get opened, period. And the other downside is the numbering on the back is super, super small. And in the middle of the card, and the back of the card is brown, and the numbering is small and in gold, super small. So you almost could miss it. And the only difference is that the front has that like kind of wood finishing look. And it's not fully wood. It just kind of, it's like a flip stock almost.
Okay.
You easily could be opening cards and not even notice you got one at all. Like they're just barely different unless you were really looking. So how many of those got tossed with just base cards? Probably crazy. So many of them. And then I'll say low lights for me. So I got these in. That's the Barry Bonds first day issue. It's numbered to 150. And I got the Warp Zone in. And the reason these are low lights is you can see they still have those numbers on there on the penny sleeve. That's because I got them in the mail and they're still just sitting in the packaging I got them in from eBay. So I'm really have to go like, did I really even want these, or were they 99-cent auctions that I saw? And I thought I'm gonna be able to snag these because they went off at a weird time of night, and I got them for both like a pretty good deal.
Right.
Maybe to Will's point, like you said earlier, I could flip them and sell them for more than I paid for them, but clearly I don't actually care to take pictures of them, post them, or like put them in the PC in like new cases. So that's like a low light of like, this is an example of like, that's a mistake. I didn't really need those.
We did talk off camera, Will, before you got here, that Ben, we need to help him get set up with a really cool card area where like he's, you know, on this show or just on the computer, but he's also able to look at his collection and like feel enjoyment out of sorting. Because when I get in that mode, it feels great. But then you get like a pile on your desk and you're like, holy crap, what am I doing here? So I feel you, dude. I feel you. How about yourself, Will? What you got there?
Man, I've got a lot I can show off. It's been a minute. Since Luke is in the chat, he actually helped me with my Hall of Fame auto collection. He hooked me up with the Larkin.
Nice.
Great picture.
For free.
Wow.
So appreciate you, Luke. And so that's a cool one. Like you get it for free from a big Reds collector. And, you know, he was like, hey, you know, I'm happy to fill a hole in the collection for you and, you know, just get the karma. I was like, awesome.
Right.
And, you know, then you just pay it forward. And then spoke about Willie Mays. So I had 2 Willie Mays autos, and I'm sure you know, Ben, the 96, 97 commemorative set with the bubbly pen that looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having 2 of those because you can get those for fairly cheap. Yep. And so I've just been sitting on them thinking like, okay, if I can find one I like and I can sell these to pay for that, okay, whatever. We'll see if I can make something happen. And then Fang ended up posting this in the Tough 90s group. This is the
yeah, dude, on the wood.
Sweet Sigs from Fear Showcase. And this is one of the short prints on the wood. I think these are out of 155.
Sick.
With a great signature on it.
He's a tough one too.
I like that he was New York Giants on the hat too. I liked that.
Yeah.
That is sick. Very cool.
He's a tough one too, because even post 90, like 97 and on, some of his were kind of streaky with the way he would sign. So you get some like pen smudges, and that always
he
like,
wouldn't get any younger either, you know.
No, also that.
So, and then for the Ripken PC, I've got a couple of like absolute monsters that I picked up that I was not expecting. These were like, oh, holy crap, that just got listed. So this was one where I pretty much just hit the buy it now. This is from Prime Cuts. I'm realizing there's a piece of plastic in there I need to get out. All right, ignore that. So the relic in this is, if it will focus.
Yo.
I like that you're peeking over the card, Will. That's an old classic. You remember exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
shoot.
the ball relic in this is from the record-breaking game.
I was gonna say it has his number on it. Yeah.
Whoa.
And that is a commemorative ball that they used for all the balls in that game, had this special commemorative stamp on it. So this is out of 8. There's only 8 from
that's so cool.
the game used ball. I picked that one up recently. And then this was one that got posted on eBay. I reached out to the guy, connected with him on Instagram, and he actually knew the card shop because he does all his grading through us. And so he was like, "You're in Columbia?" He's like, "Do you know so-and-so?" And I was like, "That's my boss." And so that was like kind of a cool connection.
Nice.
And then, so this is a bat barrel out of 3 from Leather and Lumber.
Oh,
holy crap.
Is that 1 of 1 or 2?
It's 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
Wow.
And so this is one where it was like, this is one that I would consider an overpay, but it's like, it's out of 3.
It's a bat barrel, dude.
I had, it's not an auction. I didn't have any competition. It was like, here's your chance to buy one. You either got to pull the trigger or don't. So this was the main reason I sold a bunch of stuff recently, to try and pay that off a little bit. But super happy to add that one. That's probably like the cream of the crop for my Ripken collection this year, is those 2.
Wow.
Nice.
And,
that could go in the case behind you, man. I mean, that's like display. That's got to be displayed somewhere because it's such a.
I pulled them out of the case. I pulled them out of the case. Yeah.
All right. I figured. I mean, like that needs to be appreciated with eyes. You know what I mean? Like this isn't just going in a little box, and no, it's going to be front and center. Like there it is. It has to be those cards. And I'm just doing this to motivate Ben because I know that as soon as he moves to his new house, whenever that is, I'm going to like fly over there and make sure he's got a display of some kind so he can look at his cards.
I know it's a bad habit I have of putting everything in my cases and just being like, okay, I got one picture of it, I'm good, and then I don't have a setup to like pull them back out and like re-enjoy them.
A lot of people don't know. It's a luxury to have, and there's probably going to be a day where I don't know. I mean, like I might not be able to do that, or you will, or something. But I feel like if you had the chance to do it, it's. So many of us, so many collectors just put it away, and they have their scans and they have their website, which is part of the reason I'll be at work and they're like, "Hey, what's this look like? Have we done a retro of this?" I'm like, "Well, let's look it up," but it's better just to be able to look at them and hold them. And because we going back to the first thing, all the time and energy, not to mention the money spent to get those type of cards, like you can't put a price on it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you need to find the time to appreciate it, and there's nothing much better than when you have some, friend come over and you're like, so, this gun cabinet over here, it's not actually a gun cabinet, boom. Or, when I had my team over and they all went into the card room there and they said, holy, like, wow, like we haven't seen this before. It's like everybody's got collections like that. I feel like at least my team does, but nobody has them on display, right? Because they have dogs or kids or whatever. So it's a good reminder to see where all that hard work and time and effort and connections and all that, what it looks like, what's a representation of that. So anyways, but hey, this has been a lot of fun, guys. I know we could probably talk for hours and hours. Will, we didn't really get any time to talk about the card shop, but that gives us a reason to have you back on.
Yeah, next time.
It would be great to have you on post-Christmas because I know things are going to get crazy busy that time of the year. But you kind of like an end of the year report.
We have a huge show in December, so after Christmas will be great.
Okay, yeah, we'll do something in January, kind of, because at that point it'll be over a year, obviously, that you've been there at that point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just kind of looking at the hobby, a year in review type thing. I think it would be great to have you back on with us to kind of look at that from the perspective of somebody working at shows and at a hobby shop. So that would be great. Well, we really, from me at least, thanks so much for coming on here.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah. Any last thoughts here, Ben, before we sign off?
No, although I will say, in the sense that it was sort of like a therapy, it gave me some new thoughts on how to think about organizing my efforts, especially front loading efforts, so that I feel like I'm getting into something that I can see an end to. I've got guardrails on, like all that. I feel like that was advice from Will. That was actually very helpful for me. I sometimes get caught into something, or I see something and there's that itch to like go after it. It's like, take a beat, put in the effort up front so that you don't spin your wheels searching and not finding anything, down the road.
Yeah,
sure.
it is weird to like, that car gets listed and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it's like that whole week you've got this rush, you win, it comes in the mail and you just put it in a box.
It's a wild move. I've done it way too many times.
Yeah. Once I caught myself doing that kind of like began the process of me kind of like,
because then that's time you're thinking about the card too. That's also time you're wasting thinking about it and thinking about the auction that's going to be on Friday. Okay, I got to make sure I'm like available. You start thinking about it, and then you get it and you're like, oh, I'm over it.
Yeah. So I tell people, if you, like you said, you spend all this time, all this money, find a way to show it off a little bit. You can get a lot of cheap gun cabinets on Facebook Marketplace. I've got dogs. That's why it's got a door. I keep the door closed. The dogs don't mess with it. So
right.
The only last words I have is, if you're in Columbia, December 13th through the 15th, huge card show at the State Fairgrounds. We're going to have people signing autographs. Come on out. It'll be a great time.
And you're going to be, I'm sure, part of sharing photos and things like that too, because what we can do is, if we do an episode around that time, we can show some pictures before we have you back on, at least. So that would be really cool. So I have enjoyed the selfie and then the pictures of the cards underneath, selling some cards. I mean, you've got a good connection with that. And I do love some of the, I don't want to call anybody out, but there's been some really funny interactions in there, but there's been some really cool ones where you've helped people get some awesome cards in their PC. And had you not been working there, those would have never, ever ended up with them. So that's been cool. It's going to be fun to have you back on and talk about that for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Luke, especially, and Michael, we appreciate the comments. It's been great to interact with you during the show. Awesome having both you guys on here. It's definitely solidified where I'm headed to. So if anybody knows any Tyler Glasnow collectors or Duncan Robinson collectors, hit me up. I've got a better collection than most anybody that would be hoping to buy something, which is a sad thing in a way, but a cool thing at the same time. So that'll be a fun endeavor.
Always buy them back later.
The ones that I don't want to let go is like the super factors. Those are going to be tough to decide where they're headed.
You might not be able to buy that one back later.
That was a tough one.
No. Those in the Stadium Club 101s, those obviously mean a lot too, but there's quite a lot of them. They can go. So that'll be next. But anyways, you guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for hanging out with us. And shout out to Greg. He did a solo episode. If you haven't seen the latest Essential Credentials, it's like a super sweet, like 30-minute Greg just chilling, talking through some things. Definitely recommend checking that out. And we'll see you next Sunday. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks,